So, hello and welcome to the October 2021 CASE broadcast. CASE stands for Connecting and Supporting Entrepreneurs. I hope you spotted the acronym there. We run mastermind groups, monthly workshops, and this monthly broadcast, unedited on video and audio, where we want to give you, the listener, some valuable input to help you on your journey. So it's a big hello from me, Patrick Twitchett. And
it's a huge hello from me, Melvin Manning. Lovely to see you all, even though I can't see you.
And our guest today is Tracy. Over to you.
Say something, Tracy. Tell us you're here.
It's Tracy Lamourie. Hello.
Melvin and Patrick to Tracy.
Well done. Well done. Okay, so everybody, we want to fire into our podcast. So I'm going to do this thing, Melvin. You love this, don't you?
My favourite bit. It's my favourite. Watch this, Tracy. Watch this.
You're building it up to be something so big. Listen out, listen up, and listen in. But Tracy, I'd like you first. I find trying to introduce people, I always tend to mess it up. So if you could give us 20 to 30 seconds of who Tracy is and what it is that you do, please.
So professionally, which is a big part of my life, I'm an international award-winning publicist working across industries. I'm the founder and managing director of Lamourie Media Inc., incorporated this year after 9 years, starting with freelancing and then was a solopreneur for a while and now Inc. And I'm the author of the upcoming book, Get Wrapped, Build Your Brand with Effective Public and Media Relations.
Wow. Is that available now?
In about a month or two. And I pulled it back because I had a bunch of stuff to add after the events of 2020. Just seeing how people, some different examples, like people who had done all this work to build up a brand and then kind of lost it a little bit and bled all over their Facebook page and kind of lost their brand. You know, so some of the things you have to watch out for once you have that public image. I added some of that and a few other things this year. So I pulled it back and I'm putting it back out.
So when do you anticipate the publishing date?
By early summer.
Early summer. Wow. Well, we'll have to look out for that.
Oh, and the fact that this broadcast is going to be released in October.
Oh, that's right. It'll be available by then.
Yeah. So we're talking about a future thing as if it's in the past now. So this is a very weird, it's almost like a Back to the Future moment.
But it's like saying, yeah, it's out when it's not out.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's
so,
wonderful.
Tracy, please lead us on the topic that you wanted to talk about today, please.
So essentially, I work with people across industry, like I said, not just entrepreneurs and executives, but a lot of what I do in my book and in podcasts is speak to the entrepreneur and executive audience. So essentially, I also work with creatives and anybody who has any messaging that needs to get out to the public. But specifically with entrepreneurs, especially, I would say about 80 to 90% of entrepreneurs are leaving all kinds of free media opportunities on the table just because they're not aware of how to access them or even because they don't see themselves as the expert that would be quoted on TV. People often think, oh, I'm just, this guy. And the people that we see on TV are elevated, or when the reality is the people in your industry, the people in business that you see on TV, even things like doctors and lawyers, media didn't go far and wide to find the very best in their field or to answer their, research to answer their questions. People think that the way it works, the reality is that the people you see on TV are the ones who had a publicist reach out with an idea, or that somehow they got themselves in the media Rolodex otherwise. So they're the go-to guy, or, the woman that gets the questions asked. And that, of course, elevates their profile far beyond their competition. attracts investment, attracts customers to choose you over the other guy. So for all these reasons, PR and media, which is we talk about earned media, not advertising that you can buy, is actually easy to access because everyone's an expert in their field, and again, just elevates you, catapults you to the top of your industry, essentially.
Can I ask you a question here, Tracy, before you carry on? Earned media as a phrase. Can you define that for us, please?
So earned media as opposed to advertising.
Yeah.
So earned media is, when you're reading an article and somebody's quoted in it, or the television news that you're used to seeing, radio, newspaper, all those things, unless it's the advertising portion.
Yeah.
If it's the editorial portion, you can't buy your way in. You have to be convincing an editor, a newsroom that you're a source. That you're relevant.
Fantastic. Source. Sorry, no, do carry on.
Yeah, so basically, 80 to 90% of entrepreneurs are literally just leaving those on options on the table. They're not thinking about them. They don't know how to access them. They think of the person being quoted as otherwise. And honestly, these days, you heard the term thought leadership. Yeah. And these days, if you're not accessing or using properly all the forums that we have to be heard, somebody else in your industry absolutely is. So, and we're talking dollars. We're not just talking the ego, of it's nice to be mentioned in the paper. We're talking hard dollars. I often speak about one of my clients who, after working together for 6 weeks, she literally told me, "You've changed my life and my business." And I said, I get a lot of accolades in my work, but that's a pretty big one. What do you mean? And she said, essentially, she's in the sensitive time where she's looking for funding. They had just passed their pre-seed funding with $500,000 and moving on to their funding, where the difference with the perception of what one person or another person thinks about you can make a difference between $2 million in your business getting off the ground or not. And she was literally saying, after 4 weeks of work or 6 weeks of working together, we developed 4 articles, a couple of interviews, and the perception that investors had, she said, "You're there, it just 1,000% change. You made investors take us more seriously." And I was like, that's interesting too, because I normally think more about the customer or elevating yourself above the competition, and I hadn't thought about that hard dollar result of when you're going for your $2 million in funding, and they Google you and they see all this third-party credibility with other people talking about you and your work, as opposed to you just presenting a business plan, right?
I mean, can you outline a little bit of what you did? I mean, just very, very briefly.
In that case,
I mean,
so
was it stuff that you published on the internet? Was it magazine stuff? Was it articles?
Both. There was 2 magazines, 2 of them that are in the industry publications, and 2 were more general, and then two podcasts and 1 overseas. So basically, there's 2 print articles, 2 online articles, and a couple podcasts. But basically the difference even when she would post them on LinkedIn, and even the one that was there was one that was a smaller, not well-known online publication, but it was a very strong headline and a really good article, and also the SEO was good. And she was saying, even when she posted that on LinkedIn, just the response, even from people like, not even talking about the investors here because they weren't on her LinkedIn, but even, she said, people that she went to school with 10 years ago, family members, were popping up like, "Oh, wow, you're doing really well." So that perception, that difference between, "Oh, I'm doing this, I'm saying this is my idea," and other people applauding it.
Yeah, that's 5 actions. And then off they went, which is fantastic.
Exactly. There you go. And they just renewed with me. So
you're saying articles. I mean, could we, because obviously here in the UK, could we say that they were advertorial? Would that be a good word?
Say one more time.
Do you use the phrase advertorial?
So advertorial is the opposite. So that's when you buy advertising. So we say advertorial and editorial. So advertorial is the way most entrepreneurs and executives are already thinking, which is I have a product and they know how to speak about their product, why it's better, and editorial is the mindset of the newsroom, what the editor wants, which is a big difference from what the entrepreneur wants. So you have to understand when you're reaching out to media, if you're doing it on your own without a publicist, which you can absolutely do, but you have to know that you can burn more bridges than you can build if you do it incorrectly, and your media pool is small, right? So you want to approach them properly. So you don't want to be sending them advertising why your business is better. I mean, that's just they're not gonna open that. They don't have time for that. But one good way to kind of edit yourself to think, gee, is this really something that is newsworthy in terms of sending to the media, or where could I place it? Is it something you would you would actually expect to see in the 22-minute news broadcast? Probably not. Is it something you might expect to see? This is where you kind of question yourself. Would I see a story like this in the first section of the paper, though? Would it maybe be on page A8 or A9? Then it's probably still a newsroom story, just maybe not hot news. Otherwise, it might be something you'd see in the lifestyle section or in the, and that's how you decide where to send it and where it belongs. And then in terms, that's the traditional press release. But there's also other ways to access media, just like the pod match services and that kind of thing. There's also a lot of services where media, radio, television, newspapers, giant magazines, everything from Oprah.com to Good Housekeeping, New Yorker, New York Times, Reader's Digest, every day. When those reporters are on assignment, they get 3 assignments, they have to put together things quickly. There's all these online sources, some of them that are paid, others that are, less good, but you can kind of see into for free, where reporters are looking for sources. They'll be like, with a deadline at 3 o'clock tomorrow, I'm writing an article for the New Yorker about how entrepreneurs are dealing with COVID. If you have any commentary, email me. And then they collect quotes, and then they choose the quote, and then the next day, there you go, you're in or a month down the road or 2 weeks down the road, you're in the article. So that's another giant way to build your brand or your leadership, the perception of your leadership, that kind of thing. Yeah. And if you think about it, 80%, even though this kind of talk is new to a lot of entrepreneurs, like I said, that 80 to 90% of entrepreneurs who are thinking about it, it's really telling when you think that there's not one major corporation in the world that doesn't have a PR/communication department, not one. And yet entrepreneurs don't have that. They know about their marketing, they know about their advertising, but there's this giant blank spot where they're not accessing all of those free media opportunities, where, big companies know how to do that if they have a good publicist.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. So Patrick, you're a young entrepreneur.
Yeah, okay, yes.
So from what you've heard, I mean, is this another planet for you, or are these items that you're kind of moderately aware of, but have never really, let's say, gone forward and taken advantage of?
Yeah, that's it. There's very many holes. When I've initially spoke to Tracy, it was a very eye-opening moment to see that there's all those opportunities around us that we do overlook. There's a local guy in Essex that he says, when he was trying to launch his business, he'd be at the opening of everything, even the opening of a packet of crisps. As long as something was being opened, he'd be there. And it's just latching on and becoming that popular face that's around. And I know what you're talking about, Tracy, as well, is that you wouldn't necessarily jump into these ads and say, this is my ex company and this is what we do, but actually talking around the field that you work in on a particular subject that isn't necessarily pushing or promoting yourself. You're contributing to information and giving value to clients, isn't it? Or people.
Absolutely, that's the way to look at it. You're giving value to the newsroom, and if you go into it with that, hey, that's how you have to train yourself. Oh, what do I have content that they are going to be interested in? It's their job, and they're very aware of how valuable that time and space is. I mean, if you go and buy an ad on TV, for example, I can't give you the number because I don't do advertising, but it's going to be a lot of money in that for about 1 minute, or an ad on your mainstream radio, talk radio, it's going to be a lot of money for that 1 minute. But by comparison, I get my clients interviewed for 15 minutes on, Toronto's biggest talk radio and LA talk radio. And those clients couldn't afford 15 minutes of that. And if they did, it would be just a little ad, not 15 minutes where they're talking. It's not quite as good as a podcast where they're talking at length and calmly, conversationally, but still they got that 7 minutes in there, or 15, or reporters asking them 1, 2, 3 questions. They're talking about this stuff. And that credibility, when I say you can't buy that, it really is that you can't buy that credibility.
No, you can't. No.
And you just can't. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't buy your way into the NBC News. That's not the way it works. You can buy an ad, but in terms of buying your expert, you can't do that.
So the thing is, I mean, I've been involved in advertising and marketing for 42 years. It's been my passion, my lifestyle. I've done it since I was a young kid. And PR was always a major factor as a London advertising agent that I used to be. But the thing is with, and I'm sure this translates across oceans and what have you, because PR is PR is PR, no matter in what country or in whichever language. But the point I'm trying to make here is it comes at a cost, doesn't it, Tracy? So the thing is that how do you value yourself? How do you then get that value to your potential customers or even your current customers, so that all what you're doing becomes beyond worthy?
Yeah, well, all my customers come back, or they come back. They either renew all the time, or they come back later, or they refer other people. And I work with people across, incomes and across. Some of my people have, big budgets and all kinds of money for PR, and others are solopreneurs like I am, and it's a lot of money for them, or it could be a lot of money for them, and they wouldn't be throwing it out the door if they weren't getting value, right? So yeah, absolutely. It's a job where you're always having to, you're under pressure all the time because you're always having new results. It's no good to my client that I was good 3 weeks ago if they're not getting anything now.
Of course.
So yeah, so there's always pressure. It's always research. It's always finding those new opportunities. And for me, it's media. I find media opportunities for my clients. I find opportunities for them to get on stages, more speaking opportunities. I find opportunities for them to get in front of awards committees. So I'm always, I always say my words, I hate even the term public relations, in some way I have to use it, but PR, because the word PR needs a little PR. It has, bad connotations of somebody did something wrong, so you're needing to correct the public image or something. Spin, but I don't take on projects, with people who've done something bad but need to correct it, right? So it's more a matter, I in a podcast one day, these words just came out of me, and now they're like my tagline because it was so good. But it's more like elevating and celebrating. I like to elevate and celebrate what people are doing. So my clients are doing awesome things, whether they're creatives, whether they're entrepreneurs with an idea, or just people getting out of the rat race and building their own little thing, and right, and so they're all doing good things, and they're all just needing it, highlighted. And so my word, they're doing their thing, and my job is to point to it and elevate it and put the frame around it so more people can see it and put it up in more hallways, essentially. And yeah, so that's what, the value that I bring is always having someone on your team that's looking for all kinds of opportunities for you. And in every room that I'm in, I'm talking to my clients and finding all these opportunities, and, introducing them to people who can further elevate them and do articles about them and interviews about them and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And on that point, because at the moment I'm reading, you're familiar with Tim Ferriss, aren't you, Tracy?
Say again?
Tim Ferriss. Are you familiar with Tim Ferriss?
Give me some more context. It's early here.
He wrote the book 4 Hour Work Week, and he also runs a podcast as well. I don't know if you're. He's
I may have read about him because I do a lot of reading in the business world, but because the name sounds familiar, but I haven't read his book.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. And but he's talking in the book. He's talking about what you're saying, because you're saying about people getting featured on other people's podcasts. But it can also work in return, can't it? In the fact that Tim, something that he speaks about a lot is he will engage with celebrities to get them as a guest on his podcast. So, for example, he interviews Matthew McConaughey, the big Hollywood star,
Yeah.
and he raises his profile because all of Matthew McConaughey's fans are going to see that he's in a podcast and come and see that podcast, and they're sort of latching onto those audiences as well, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It goes both ways. Podcasts, appearing on podcasts. So there's two. Appearing on podcasts, I found insane in these days for I mean, I don't do any advertising. The only marketing I do is, I guess, podcast. And I hadn't even seen them that way originally because I'm a media girl. So I was seeing them as a second, another alternative to media, or as another media,
Yeah.
radio, television, newspapers, magazines, podcasts. And but now, since I've been appearing on so many of them myself, not just putting my clients on them, I'm finding that if you're a business to business, it's huge. Spend the time, spend the time doing them, because I've done 100 and something now since last July. I use my, my time well, and my time is hugely scheduled. Like, I'm tightly scheduled. I wouldn't be doing that. I don't have time to waste. I wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't it's fun and worthwhile to kind of talk about my industry and give more knowledge to people who don't really know about it. Really, a lot of entrepreneurs, but secondly, I found it huge in terms of networking, because I guess, I don't know if it was like 2 years ago, but now that we're all at home, we're all doing the same thing. I've been hired by a bunch of podcasters, but that wasn't my intention. I've been, referred to, they've podcasters who've interviewed me have then interviewed other entrepreneurs and referred me to them for their business. I've had people message me that heard me on a podcast and hired me. It's happened a couple times now. So it's huge for your marketing. It's huge for your networking even more. And then in terms of being on the podcast, having your own podcast, same thing. Now you're media. So now you are able to offer the opportunity to other people to be heard. And when you're doing that, again, you're also building your own brand. So
Yes.
we have these platforms. It's another platform, just like, all the socials. And if you use it effectively, again, you are media with the power of media.
So does Lamourie Media, a la you, but does Lamourie Media have a USP?
A which?
Do you have a USP? What is your point of difference? Why would I go to you instead of another PR agency, company,
Well, number one,
person?
you'd hear about me, a lot more probably, because I'm so good at what I do. What I do for myself, I do for my clients. And if you look at my profile, it's only really this year that I've started to worry about building my own in the media. I have a media profile that's existed for, years, from my younger days, activist work, from my, I've done all kinds of stuff. I did weekly TV before I became a publicist. So my job as a publicist, I was obviously elevating my client's profile and all that. And for a couple of years, I wasn't really bothering myself. And then during COVID, now, the rise of podcasts and all kinds of things, as I'm on all these platforms doing work for my clients, started with podcasts, for example. I thought, maybe I should go on that one and talk to entrepreneurs. I see that entrepreneurs, I have a message for them. So I started just, doing one or two here and there. And then, as I told you, the results that have come out was so good. So now if you look at my profile, as opposed to a year ago, just 1 year, and again, I've already been doing all the work that I had the resume already to prove myself from all the work I've done for clients. But if you look at my own brand now, I've mostly, as Lamourie Media, I mostly developed it this year, and probably since June. And since June, in terms of me being super public and getting out there and telling my story, and since June, I've won the Women in Media Award from Universal Women's Network. I've literally been on, I've lost count now, but I'm booked. I've either done or I'm booked on literally more than 200 podcasts from last June till next June, from small ones, but mostly high profile ones, to top 5 Apple ones, to middle of the road, whatever it is. And all of them talking to executives, entrepreneurs, talking about leadership, authenticity, building your brand, how to get media attention. So now you can search my name, just like I say to my clients, if you're a real estate agent, well, how do you differentiate yourself? You search, after you work with me for a few months, you search your name and your oppositions, or your opposition, your competitor's name, and you're going to see you have all this third-party credibility and they don't. Now you search my name, and almost any other publicist in the world, other than people who've been doing for 20 years and working for all kinds of Hollywood celebrities, and but even some of them, you search my name and the people who work for some of these celebrities, and you don't see them with 200 interviews and all this stuff and blah blah blah, and and that does the same thing for me as it does for my clients. It builds that credibility. When you search my name and you see 300 links, actually there's thousands of links, but I mean you see hundreds of links with me talking about my work. And then you look at, Bob, the publicist. Well, why wouldn't you, obviously, so many people are coming to me, getting educated by me, putting me on their stages, giving me awards, even though part of that is because I make sure I'm out there and I make sure they see me and I make sure, that's how you do it. Then obviously I'm better at what I do, or I'm good at what I do because I'm showing it every day. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's all about the same thing. Why would anybody choose to? Publicity, and that there's a reason in the 50s they used to say as seen on TV with every commercial, because that brought that credibility that now we're more sophisticated. We know you can drop $1 million and say whatever you want in a commercial, but you can't do that, in an interview. They're not going to interview you if they don't find a value or feel like you're an expert. So the very fact that you're in that media, repeat it. And it's different, like, sales and marketing. It's different from sales and marketing. It's not like a direct ROI. I was in the New York Times, I made these sales. I can't really do those kind of plans like we would do in marketing. It's more like, you can look at my record, you can look at what I do, you have to trust me that I tell you you're a good story. I start, we go, and now you see the results when next month you hire me again.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously things have changed in the last 20 odd years. Now we've got social media, which makes publicity much more accessible and can carry things more. And alongside podcasts now, we've got a very new kid on the block, bearing in mind that we're talking in April 2021, but this is coming out in October. But at this time, Clubhouse has become this new beast. Have you had any experience of that yet at all, or is
with
that
Clubhouse?
Yeah, with Clubhouse.
A bunch of my clients are on it, having huge success. I personally haven't gone on it with my brand yet, but I really it's only because I've been like insanely busy that I haven't started anything new, because I always hate when a new platform comes out, in some ways, because it's like, oh my God. I've already got like people, when people, someone say, oh, I sent you a message. Well, where did you send it? Signal, was it on Facebook, on Twitter, on Signal? Oh, I messaged you on Instagram. I don't check my Instagram messages. That's for posting. So in some ways, but obviously Clubhouse is it's just exploded, and it is a really good one because of the fact that it's audio and it's a replacement, to some ways, the talk radio. Lay down. And it's so sorry, my daughter's dog.
All right, okay.
Talk radio.
Yeah, that's a common lockdown occurrence now. We're all immune. We're all immune to dogs appearing on and children appearing on podcasts now. It all tends to happen, so that's fine.
I think coming back to PR, if I can be so boring to continue our conversation, if you don't mind. This is called bringing things back to the point. Could I ask you, if you were to summarize what you do and put it into, let's say, a bubble for which you then entrepreneur yourself, everybody's wish to take their brand, to take their service, to take their product out into the big wide world and create, wonderful wealth. How would you summarize what you do?
again, back to that little elevate and celebrate. I mean, essentially, that's, what I do is just shine a spotlight on the work that people are doing. And in one way, put a frame. It was way my husband, my business partner, explained it one day. He was saying, it's like we put a frame around the picture. The creative or the work or the business person is the picture, and we're the frame that helps put it on the wall, helps present it to the world in the right light, essentially.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't have asked for a better summary, Patrick.
No, that's the best summary I've ever had summarising
Well, I like words.
of our broadcast. That's very good. That's very good. And as we alluded to earlier, Tracy, we'd like to have a word given out at the end of our broadcast. I mean, one for us, it validates that people have actually listened to it all the way through and haven't just stopped after 5 minutes.
It can be a phrase, Patrick, can't it?
Yeah, a word or a phrase, but people can use it in their review or feedback. And then the most creative one we'll give a prize to. So what would your word or phrase be in relation to today's recording?
I'm going to say elevate.
Elevate. Oh, yes.
Oh, like
that. Very good.
That's a good one. We love to elevate.
Excellent. Excellent. No, that's brilliant. All right. Well, I think after that now, Melvin, I think we just need to sum up and say farewell, don't we?
Well, I think this is that moment.
Is that moment? Wipe the tear from your eye.
Well, I will, because obviously it's been fascinating talking to Tracy. That's for certain.
You're sad. You guys are going to miss me.
I'm missing you already. I can't wait to see the recording.
And of course, it is one of our international superstars that have joined us today, because you're all the way from where, Tracy?
I am in Canada, about 40 miles out of Toronto.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So there we are, from across the pond. And this will, of course, feature in our mid-October workshop. It will, of course, be in the afternoon, because Tracy is, I don't know, how many hours behind are you?
5 or 6.
About 5 or 6 at least.
Yeah.
PR life, I work till 2 or 3 in the morning because I'm all across time zone with clients. So I worked till like 2 or 3 in the morning last night, and then I woke up at 7 to be, in the UK for 8. So.
oh God, you deserve a trophy or a medal for that at least, I should think. So I think without further ado, anyone wants to reach out and connect with us, have a look at our website, casemastermind.co.uk. There's links to everything on there, our YouTube, our audio podcast, our Facebook and Likened pages, and all of these wonderful sites. So it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me and him and all those else out there. Cheerio.
And it's a goodbye from...
And a goodbye from me. And a little note that I work internationally, anywhere where they speak English. So if you want a free consult, just tell them you saw me here.
And there's a good point there, Tracy. Before we disappear, and I should have asked this, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
So LamourieMedia.com, LAMOURIE media.com, or LamouriePR@gmail.com, or you can find me under my name, Tracy Lamourie, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Tracy Lamourie PR Media on Instagram, and all those other platforms.
Wow. Plenty to choose from. So thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
We've lost Tracy.
I think the video's gone off and
the mute's on.
Yeah. I don't know if you can still hear us, Tracy.
I have a feeling this is a PR stunt.
She might be.
This is attention grabbing.
She might be excommunicating the dog from the room. Oh, it happens so much, doesn't it? And they're actually the best ones, aren't they? When
What, the dogs?
Well, when the cat jumps on someone's lap while they're on the news.
Yeah, we've lost her
We've lost her
completely now.
completely.
Yeah. And I could see, because I thought she was falling off the chair.
Yeah, I think whatever it was, the laptop or the phone went awry there.
Well,
hopefully
perhaps this is the closure of our podcast. Unbeknown to us, this is definitely a PR stunt.
it might be.
Do you remember that podcast we did where the PR agent totally disappeared?
Yeah, we'll give her a few minutes anyway before she comes back. But she, as I said, she's very, she's very good at the way she comes across. She's very non-stop, isn't she?
Oh, it's energy, and these guys are full of energy. I mean, Sharon Chevin, who used to be a girlfriend of mine, was the publicity, the PR for rock bands. I don't know if you remember those stories I've told in the past.
Oh, right, okay.
And I mean, I travelled all over the place with her. I did cruises in the Caribbean, Mexico, and the Gulf of Mexico, etc. With 20 rock bands on a cruise ship. And she was the publicity consultant that, if you like, brought everyone's attention to the events, to the people, to the news. And that's what Tracy does. It's a heck of a job. But what I was trying to draw from her was, do the fees translate across the oceans?
Oh, she's coming back in the room now.
I'm so sorry. The whole cord got pulled right out.
Well, we thought the dog ate you.
We still have your video, Tracy.
So is it lunchtime?
Oh, wait a minute. What happened? Oh, there we go. There we go. Sorry. Can we edit that part out?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, good. I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. That's fine.
Zoom.
I was just saying to Melvin, sometimes they're the bits you remember. In the UK with the BBC News, there's been 2 or 3 over the last few years, and there was a particular guy. I can't remember the guy, Melvin, that his wife tried to come in and get the child out of the room, and she
on the floor. Yeah.
And then as she went out of the room, she sort of hit herself on the door and then shut out the room. And he was trying to remain really calm.
But it was very hard not to laugh.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Hilarious.
No, I would argue that this is a triumph of democracy. Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea, South Korea's